Hello, everybody. Let's talk about finding area of a triangle. To find the area of a triangle, we have a formula. The area of a triangle is 1/2 the length of the base times the length of the height. Because because a triangle is like 1/2 of a rectangle. To find the area of a rectangle, you could just multiply the length of the base times the length of the height, but then you just divide that by 2. That's how you find the area for a triangle. What I had here is I kind of color coordinated. I'm going to call B is the length of the base, and H is the length of the height. And so it's important to remember that the base must be perpendicular to the height. We don't measure heights if they're not perpendicular. So there's 3 little cases that I put right here, and what we refer to as the base doesn't always necessarily have to be the side that's at like the bottom of the triangle. Now, in this picture, you see triangle ABC is a right triangle. There's a little right angle symbol here. And so we know since the line AB and the line BC, those segments are perpendicular, then we can treat these two as the base and the height of the triangle. But over here, you see, I have the side AC, which is kind of like at the bottom. But since this side AC is not perpendicular to BC or AB, then in this case, I chose to use the base as this side BC and the height as that side AB, because those two are the ones that are perpendicular to each other. So it's important to notice that the base does not have to be the side that's at the bottom of the triangle. Now, the third case over here is when I don't have a right triangle. Triangle DEF is not a right triangle. So now, to find the height of the triangle, I drew in an altitude. So the altitude is a segment that goes from a vertex to the opposite side, and it has to be perpendicular to that side. So now I'm referring to the segment from D to F as the base of the triangle, and this segment from E to G as the height of the triangle. And this is the case that we'll be studying mostly in this chapter. Okay, so here I have an example of finding the area of this triangle. So notice that the triangle DEF is not a right triangle. I don't know what the measures of angles E and F are, but I know that this angle, E, or D and E, I don't know, but I know angle F is a 52.9 degree angle. So to find the area of this triangle, if I'm going to use the formula, area is equal to 1/2 base times height, I can't simply multiply 5.2 and 5 because those two cannot be the base and the height. Instead, what I'll have to do is draw in an altitude. So let me use the shape tool. I'm going to draw an altitude, and this is going to be approximate, but I want to draw a line that should be perpendicular down here. Okay, so this segment that I drew represents the altitude. So now to find the base, or the length of the base, I'll call this length from D to F. So that's the length 5.2. But what I need to know is how long is the height of this triangle. So to do that, that's where I can include some right triangle trig. You see, because by drawing this altitude, what I did was created 2 different right triangles, from D to E to this new point that I just created, and from F to E in this new point. So there's 2 different right triangles. And notice that this triangle here on the right side, I really have, I know both the length from E to F, I know the measure of this angle F. So I can use those 2 pieces of information to figure out what this length right here has to be. Okay, so you see how I outlined this triangle in green, and since I know the measure of this 52.9 degree angle, I'm going to use that as my reference angle. And since I have this triangle I know is a right triangle, being that I drew this line to be an altitude, so I know these are perpendicular. So I called this side my opposite side. So what I want to do is I want to figure out what's the length of this opposite side when the length of the hypotenuse is 5, and this angle is a 52.9 degree angle. So that's what's got to go right here. So I got to figure out how long is that height. Okay. And so to do that, I'm going to kind of write an equation to figure out the length of this opposite side. Well, I'm thinking, well, since that's a right triangle, I can use sine, cosine, or tangent. And I want the length of the opposite side when I know the length of the hypotenuse. So this is where a sine equation would be helpful. So my equation is going to look something like this. So here's my equation that I can use to find the length of this opposite side, which represents the height of the triangle. So it's the sine of 52.9 degrees is equal to the length of this O, I put it as an O right here, divided by the length of the hypotenuse of that right triangle, which is 5. So I'm going to go to my equation solver, and I'm going to write the equation. The sine of 52.9 is equal to x over 5. So what it tells me is that height has to be 3.98791. Now, it's important for me to use this or try to be precise when I do this calculation, because this is not my final answer. This is only on the way to get to my final answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use like this whole value. So the length of this opposite side, I was told, was 3.98791. Now, it does go on from there, but once you get to about 4 decimal places, that's about as precise as you'll have to be in terms of what we'll round to. But you see here, I'm going to take that length, I'm going to plug it back in here. So it's 1/2 of my base length, which was 5.2, times the length of the height, which I found to be this 3.98791. And now I'll go back to the calculator and find what that is when I multiply it. So I typed in 1/2 times the length, or the base length, which was 5.2, times the height length, which was the 3.98791, and it says that my area would be about 10.368566. Now I didn't tell you how you should round that, but let's say that now we can come down here and say that my area is about 10.4 square units. So that's me. That's how you can find the area of a triangle when we don't know one of these values. And we can use trig because the base and the height have to be perpendicular, which means we can make right triangles, which means we can do right triangle trig. Okay, use that, try out to the few practice problems that I put on Desmos, and then we should be good with this topic. Bye-bye.